Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Podcast. Joining me today is Ian Clifford, who is board chair and CEO of FuelPositive. Thanks, Ian, for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Mario. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk about FuelPositive. Exactly what is the company? What do you guys do?
Well, we're a Canadian technology company where our current focus is the development of a on-farm or on-site modular green ammonia technology. And this is to replace gray ammonia, which is one of the most polluting materials on the planet, with a green solution that initially farmers can use in agriculture as fertilizer. So this is our focus. We're just getting ready to complete the commissioning of our first system, and we're very, very excited about getting that first system to farm.
Tell me when, a little bit of the history of the company, Ian. When did it start, and more importantly, I guess, why? Like, where did this idea come from?
Sure. We were introduced to this technology late in 2000 and in 2020. And this the initial technology was being developed by Dr. Ibrahim Dinser at Ontario Technology University, just outside of Toronto. And he is one of the preeminent scientists in both green ammonia and green hydrogen in the world. And we're looking at it and thinking, wouldn't this be fascinating if we could figure out a way to scale this up to the right size for agriculture initially around the world, as a decentralized and sustainable way of producing green ammonia for nitrogen fertilizers around the world.
So you're in the middle right now of a $7.5 million private placement. Tell me a bit about how that works and why you embarked on this.
Sure. Yeah. No, we've since early in 2021, we've raised about $18 million for this project through private placement. We're public on the Toronto Venture Exchange, and we decided that it would be a good time to raise a meaningful amount of capital, specifically to complete the commissioning of the existing first system, but also to get a really good head start and push into the subsequent systems. We started pre-sales on the technology last summer. We've got about 200 systems in the pipeline. These are $1 million systems. So we're getting interest from all over the world. And we're just gearing up now to start the commercialization of the first 30 systems. So we've pre-qualified end users. We've got the team in place to build, and we are ready to go. So this capital will act as a real kickstart on those next projects. We expect also to receive government support for the next systems as well. We've had a tremendous response both federally and provincially for our technology. So yeah, so we're just gearing up to make sure we've got what we need to make it through this very, very important transformational stage from pre-commercialization to commercialization.
So how does one invest?
Well, it's really easy. It's an interesting private placement. It's a life private placement, which means this is a new format that the Canadian exchanges came out with late last year, and it's open to both accredited and non-accredited investors. So FuelPositive has thousands of shareholders, and every time, historically, when we've done a private placement, I get all these inquiries from non-accredited investors as to how I can participate. And sadly, historically, I've always had to say you can't. So this is a much more open playing field. We've got $5 million of the $7.5 million available for both accredited and non-accredited investors. And the response has been extraordinary. It's been quite overwhelming, in fact, which is great. So we're just getting ready to close the first tranche on that, and we'll likely close a second tranche on it in the coming week. So it's all happening very, very quickly. The easiest way to get involved is just send me an email. It's ian@fuelpositive.com. I'll happily set you up with our team to make sure that you get all the material you need to make a considered investment. And and then you're welcome to come along for the ride.
So why do you think investors, this concept and this business is resonating with investors?
Well, it's a hugely disruptive technology. It's taking 100-year-old commodity of gray ammonia, which is one of the most carbon intense manufacturing processes on the planet. And it's which interestingly over the last century is responsible for feeding half the people on the planet. So an essential part of agriculture is nitrogen produced from ammonia, but it has this huge carbon footprint. So we thought that the best way to do this was to let the end user, initially the farmer, produce their own material on farm, so they know they've got supply, they know they've locked in cost, and they've given themselves security in one of the most variable inputs on the farm. So we're building a lot of security for agriculture, decarbonizing fertilizer, nitrogen fertilizer, which is a very, very significant component of emissions, and giving stability, which ultimately translates into food security. So it has a whole bunch of very, very interesting layers to it. And it's also a great Canadian story. So it's Canadian intellectual property. It's a Canadian manufacturing team. The intention is to build systems. They're built on a 20-foot container footprint for a reason, and that is that we can build them all in Canada and export them all over the world. And that's our model. Our model is to build a tremendous Canadian company for decentralized production of green ammonia. And that's what we're doing.
Okay, Ian, with apologies to Dragon's Den, I'm going to call this Mario's Den. So convince me in, 30 seconds why I should invest in FuelPositive.
Well, because you can be part of disrupting a multi-billion-dollar, 100-year-old industry that needs disrupting. And you can do it as a proud investor in a Canadian brand, in a Canadian company that will make that kind of fundamental change globally.
It seems to me that there's huge potential here, right, for the future?
Oh yeah, no, it's a vast market. We're getting inquiries from all over the world, and in multiple sectors. So agriculture, 80% of gray ammonia today is used in agriculture, but a tremendous amount is used in other industries. So we're getting interest for water purification, for green ammonia refrigerants, and also as a fossil fuel replacement. So it's not well understood, but ammonia is a tremendous fossil fuel replacement because it has such a high concentration of hydrogen in it. And it's a lot easier to store and move around than pure hydrogen. So in a farm situation, you can replace propane or natural gas or diesel fuel with green ammonia that you produce on your own farm. And you've got excess hydrogen and oxygen in our process that then can give you clean combustion. So this is a very, very interesting, not only a replacement for gray ammonia for fertilizer, but potentially a huge fuel switching opportunity to move off of fossil fuels as well. So you can imagine how farmers are contemplating this and getting so intrigued about the idea of having that level of independence in their own operation. And it's, and like I said, the response is it's extraordinary.
Also, the timing, I guess, is great, right? Obviously, if you came up with this, 5, 10, 15 years ago, the level of interest in this whole area of decarbonization just wasn't there. But,
no, and that's a really good point. That's a really good point. And there are a number of other elements as well. So we've seen the deterioration of global supply chains, certainly over the last several years. highlighted in the struggles during COVID, obviously. And we've seen the vulnerability of centralized production of fertilizers as a result of the horrible conflict in Ukraine, where their entire infrastructure has been destroyed. And Ukraine feeds most of Africa. So I think we're at the tip of the iceberg in terms of the incredible detrimental impact of that conflict. And the other thing is, Ukraine, hopefully this horrible war is going to end, and they have to think about rebuilding. And are they going to rebuild the old infrastructure, or are they going to look at solutions like ours, which are decentralized, which are sustainable, which are modular, which would make a tremendous much more sense in that context of rebuilding. So so we're very, very interested in supporting that specific activity, but the same need exists all over the world, quite interestingly. So.
Yeah, so if you fast forward and you look into your crystal ball, Ian, of FuelPositive in 5 years from now, what do you think you're going to be?
I think we'll be producing hundreds of thousands of systems in Canada for use across Canada, but also for export around the world. I think that's very much our model, is to build and to scale here, to ship these systems. And the systems are designed to last for decades. So the idea is you ship it once, and then it has its existence wherever the end user is utilizing it. And it's a permanent export from Canada. So a lot of excitement around that, a lot of plans about ramping up production. We've got an amazing team in-house in Waterloo now who has decades of experience in automated manufacturing. So built systems for Tesla and Toyota and Simplot, companies like that. So a tremendous amount of bench strength to take this to mass production. So very, very exciting. Lots of plans around that. We expect a tremendous amount of interest and support federally in Canada for this, as I said, for this made in Canada technology.
So Ian, anything else you wanted to mention that I didn't ask you about?
No, I think that's great. I mean, the exciting thing is the first system will be on farm in Manitoba, just outside of Winnipeg soon. It's an 11,000 acre grain farm. They've been using ammonia as fertilizer for decades, so they're ready for it. They're excited about it. And they've got tons and tons of neighbors who are waiting and excited to see it in action. So, and that's really for us is the turning point, is getting that first system up and running. Then we're not sitting here talking about its success, the success of it. It'll be the end user who's talking about it, which of course is a lot more compelling, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Well, super. Thanks very much, Ian, for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Mario.
All right, that was Ian Clifford, Board Chair and CEO of FuelPositive. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Podcast. Thanks for joining us today.